Hi, Sierra. We're gonna take a look at your e- aesthetics and control posting here. And so let's just jump right in. We'll start off with just an overview, take a look at what we have here. Uh, Hold or not to hold, we should have half-second exposures, a 15th of a second exposures, 1/25th of an exposures, different lens length, focal lengths. Looks like you've got that. How deep? We've got 55. Not sure what's going on here with the blur. It looks like you're not using a tripod on this second one. That was kind of needed to have this one on a stabilized thing. We'll talk about that a little bit. That might have affected that accuracy on that project. You're not quite getting what we wanted you to on that. Equivalent exposures. Looks like you're getting 3 photographs that look the same. So we'll take a look at that. That's what we wanted. And then the you know better. Okay, cool. So you've got everything up there. We'll kind of go through some of these. Now the half second, the hold or not to hold. The shutter speeds, with the 3 shutter speeds, it's really meant to introduce the concept of movement, controlling shutter speed, and how that can affect visually the nature of the photograph, what these different things mean. It's not just a number, it's an aesthetic, it's a visual. And so when you choose a 1/25th or a half a second, what does that mean? And when you want to go for a certain look, how do you achieve it? So if you want to get this sort of active energy blur kind of thing going on, or if you want to kind of have everything super sharp and motion kind of stopped in the middle of its action, how do you do that? That's what this hold or not to hold is meant to introduce to you. And it looks like you've got it. You're really kind of got that beautiful energy in this one. This is a beautiful photograph, Sierra. You've got a quality of light there that's really working. You've got enough detail that tells us that something's going on here, but the camera shake is deliberate enough that you can tell the photographer, which is you, is doing it, right? You mean to do it to us. Same thing's going on with this one. It's intentional looking. When it's not done aggressively enough, it can look like a mistake, which we don't want, of course. That's what can kind of happen with a 15th of a second is you don't quite get enough camera shake to make it look like you're doing it deliberately, but at the same time, it's not quite focused enough to make it look perfectly tack sharp. So what the 15th of a second tends to tell you is that you got to have a tripod. If you're ever you're blocked in and have to do a 15th of a second for whatever reason, you tend to have that tripod. When you get to the 125, you know that it's going to be a handheld. The thing that you wind up with that is you start to discover at 1/25th that the light has to maybe be more intense, right? So there's lessons all throughout this hold or not to hold. So with the half a second, how do you deal with the movement? You got to make the lighting a little bit different because the exposure's so long. With the 1/25th, the lighting may not be enough. You have to increase the brightness. There's thought that goes into these things, and you have to puzzle those things out. But it looks like you're doing it. Looks like you're doing it. You got a little bit of a shift in color going on, but it's not so much that it doesn't work. Now, with the how deep, that's the apertures. Couple of things that are going on here. First, it doesn't look like you're using a tripod, which you definitely needed a tripod. The whole idea here is to, again, to attach a visual to the numbers. So with apertures, just like with the shutter speed, we have these numbers, but they don't mean anything until we attach them to something visual. And with apertures, what we're looking at is the size of the hole that the light can pass through. But the size of the hole dictates what the depth of field looks like. Depth of field being how deep is the focus in your image. So when you focus an image, like let's say it's focused on me, is all the way to my hand that's up front here to all the way in the back where the door jamb is that all in focus? Or is my hand out of focus, I'm in focus, and the door jamb's out of focus? In that case, it's called shallow depth of field. If I'm in focus, my hand and the door jamb are out. If my hand's in focus, I'm in focus, the door's in focus, that's called deep depth of field. You can choose either one for different purposes. So we're exploring that in this experiment. To do it, we set up the still life, we have our camera on a tripod, and we go through the different apertures in order to make a visual map, basically, of what the depth of field looks like. If we're not on a tripod, our camera's all over the place. We keep changing it, looking down, changing, it doesn't work. So whether you had the apertures changing or not, by virtue of not having this on a tripod, it's sort of interfering with the project. So we may have to kind of go back and look at that. We'll sit down, we'll see if we have to or not, but it looks like that was an issue for you on this, because we're not getting the actual issue. We're not getting quite the effect we're going. That also, you're using largest aperture, smallest aperture. You've got it in reverse. The largest aperture would not produce this look. The largest aperture, meaning wide open, I guess you're saying, or the largest number. See, I don't know because you're not actually putting the number in there. So I want to be able to know that you're understanding it. So if we definitely should have a conversation about that, just so we know what you know. This image has deep depth of field. The image here, the bones and the bones in the back are more in focus than on the one up here that you're identifying as a small aperture. See, that's way out of focus. Didn't mean to do that. See, that is way out of focus here and way out of focus here. That tells me it's a wide open aperture, shallow depth of field. That's an aperture of like 5.6 or f4. That's a wide open aperture. So I don't know if that means when you're saying smallest aperture, if that's what you mean or not. This large aperture, this is more in focus. This is not perfectly in focus, but more in focus. That tells me that the hole is smaller. So there you go. That I want to clarify with you as well. Good photograph, though, by the way. The lighting is beautiful. You're doing a wonderful job with lighting, by the way, in these. Now, you've got it better here. Looks like you found a tripod and you're making it work. But again, it's like, for some reason, we're only having 2 steps here. We got 1, 2, 3. And maybe you just had 3 f-stops on there, 1, 2, 3. Maybe that's the case. You only had the 3, but you do have tripods here. So it looks like you did find a tripod. So I just needed to make sure that you understand what the f-stops mean. So we'll just have a quick conversation about that. I'm sorry. These are the equivalent exposures that you did. So we do need to clarify about the apertures. Equivalent exposures. The equivalent exposures are about understanding that you have different choices when it comes to these exposure solutions. We've worked with shutter speed and aperture separately in the first 2. Here we're working with manual control, and we're using both of them at the same time. Now, it's no magic trick to use manual control nowadays because you have the instant feedback of your digital screen. So when you take a picture, if it's too dark or too light, you can just dial the buttons and make it brighter or darker and take another picture. So it's really more about understanding the visual kind of consequence of one way or another. So again, you've got the pictures correctly, all the same. I just need to have the data, or at least have us talk about whether you did the data correctly. So I know that you have it right. So anyway, we'll just touch base and make sure that you have the information that you have. Here you went black and white with the better. That's all good. You got some really kind of cool looking aesthetics going on. Here you went sort of like on low key images. This gets a little bit too dark. I think you can kind of realize that that's a little dark. That's a little bit too dark. Nothing, I mean, that's a little too dark to save. This one we could probably save in Photoshop if we wanted to. These get a little bit better on there. This is a really kind of a cool image. It just kind of gets away from you a little bit. I almost wish it was just a little bit brighter. We really could have had a really interesting image there. This does a beautiful job of that movement. Once again, looks like you had fun with the movement on it on there. Again, it looks like you're really kind of took to the movement a little bit better than some of these others. I just have a few questions in terms of making sure that you understood the technical aspects of the assignment. I want to be sure that you got the information that you had. Your photographs are beautiful. This being more of a technical kind of series of projects, it is important that we get that information. Really look forward to seeing what your solutions are for the location stuff. And we'll see you in the studio. All right. Bye-bye now.